It's quite simple. What kind of super weapon would we get if all of the weapons for a class and their slot were compiled together? This video series aims to explore exactly that, so let's see what horrible contraptions we would concoct. Now, what is going to be different from the previous videos is that I will not be voicing over the positives and negatives and whatever else. That was boring. I'm going to talk about the weapon itself, with the attributes and stuff to the side. You all know how to read, right? Alright, that should also make these videos much shorter and much more fun for you. For our primary weapon, we have the Flogging the Greasy Back Thrower, which not only sounds disgusting, but also makes for a surprisingly lethal primary. Sometimes. In terms of actual utility, what we've done is we've given the Flog the benefits of the Back Burner and the Degreaser, which means that he's an absolutely terrifying combo and chaser machine. The lack of any and all air blasting means that your uses are going to be incredibly limited though. You're going to have to primarily focus on flank routes. If you are paired up with a medic and time your bursts of crits well, you should be nearly unstoppable once you gain the upper hand, at least on a pub. The good news is, getting the actual fire damage should not be a huge issue. Provided that you initiate the fight, with this weapon you should have no issue with winning, though if they get away, there is a stronger chance that they will survive. The Pyro will only have two secondaries. The first, and the best of them all, and not by much, is the detonating flare of Scorched Man Melting. A couple of things to note here is that the Man Melter removes extra damage on hit, but the detonator in Scorch Shot did mini crit damage. So instead of removing outright all critical damage, in this case it only made sense to remove crits fully, but leave the mini crits, since two other weapons did that. For reference, the flare gun did crits on a burning target and the Man Melter would take that away, so all we're left is mini crits. This is no different than merging the same multiple positive attributes from other weapons as I've done before. We also need to note that the weapon would have two alt fires, so one would have to be the right click or alt fire key, and one would have to be the reload key or whatever other key you have it bound to, since it doesn't actually have ammo. While this flare gun does sound like it would be weak at first, it actually covers a few of the bases that the Pyro is missing with his primary, the main point being his air blast. It also stores guaranteed crits, and extinguishing fires also heals you. It is a much more self-supporting weapon and would help you build up for the big release, the faster flares, and the knockback, plus you can manually detonate it, and hitting somebody else lets the flare drop on the ground and explode again, means that you shouldn't ever be missing an opportunity to set somebody on fire if you wield this. You also still have some of the functionality of flare jumping, but the Scorch's jumps aren't nearly as strong as the detonators, so getting to places you shouldn't be will be just a little bit more difficult. In short, this flare gun is basically the perfect damage over time weapon. You should always have somebody under your fire with this. You won't get any massive damage because even the stored crits would only be 36 damage not counting the afterburn, so getting a kill with it would be very unlikely. However, it is a surefire way to constantly keep the enemy team annoyed. It would be great at that. The Pyro shotgun is just the panic shooter, which is an upgrade from the Soldier's righteous panic shooter. I don't need to go too much into this one since it's combining two weapons that are equally despised, but for different reasons. You won't be able to airshot well with this given that the panic's reload mechanic screws everything else, but without the electric projectiles like the Soldier, at least it is far more reliable. Against another Pyro, it could probably take them down very quickly, and I could see a Pyro air blasting somebody. Well, that's right, they don't have that. Well, I could see a Soldier popping them into the... Well, maybe not, because they don't have the knockback from the rockets, but, you know, maybe a scout shoves them or something, I don't know. Point is, it's not a terrible secondary, but the reload mechanic of the panic attack messes with everything as usual. It is a semi-reliable medium damage dealer, which is great for when you are facing a bunch of other Pyros. Finally, we have the Pyro's melee, and this is where literal hell breaks loose. The Pyro has such a wide variety of melee options compared to other classes, and their combined utility is downright horrifying. Of course, that's why we have to give it such a fancy name. Mr. Axe-Wrecking Power Scratcher of Neon Fragments III is quite an odd one. crits against burning or wet players is already pretty astounding, even if the crit itself would only do 108 damage, which is not enough to one-shot any class from full health, except for a kunai spy, but that is still really good. But the extra movement speed paired with getting more health from health packs and getting damage to all connected medic targets and engulfing them in flames means that no matter what, in 2 hits, something is going to die or be damn close to it. The main thing that sucks here is the damage vulnerability, which is increased by 20% from all sources. That leaves you incredibly vulnerable, and the slower swing speed will make getting combos with this just a little bit harder. It's nothing major, but nothing insignificant either. It will have a learning curve. Always dealing 92 damage to buildings since you deal double damage is nice, and while it does have a slight debuff of sapper removal like the Engineer's Jag, it is still an extremely handy tool. A medic would not dare chase a target being actively assaulted by a Pyro, because doing so would very likely kill them as well. This makes Pyro an incredible threat when flanking, because they have a strong chance of killing a medic, or at least remove their healing because a medic wouldn't want to die. That is such a dang powerful upside. Last but not least about this weapon, there is something that I need to clarify with the negatives. There is a distinct difference between damage versus players and raw damage penalty in the weapon descriptions. Basically, anything else that can be damaged but is not a player, buildings basically, suffers from a different damage penalty. And I think because the stats of the weapons makes that clear distinction, we too should follow that instead of giving it a damage penalty on top of a player penalty. To me, combining them both does not make sense, but I am sure some people will disagree, and that's okay. I expect you to. That's how a controversy works. Aside from that, the Pyro's weapons are a tad limited. When his melee has some of the widest changes in how they function and their unique features, his remaining arsenal is only slight deviations from stock or flare. He doesn't have a devoted shotgun like the Soldier or the Engineer, and I think it shows. Hopefully with the Pyro update, things will change. In any case, thank you all so much for watching, and please stay tuned because more will be coming your way. Bye-bye. I asked if you guys were okay with it, and you were, so my specific marketplace TF shop is now open. There is a link in the description below. I will be advertising this shop towards the end of each video like I do awesome accomplishments from now on. Ads will always go after the accomplishments. I was not expecting the overwhelming amount of support that everyone gave me, and I look forward to seeing how this works out. Now, this shop is getting started, so more fun items will be on there eventually, probably updated with each video that I release. Every item on there should have my name on it, somewhere as proof of your support. If I goofed, please post a pic of the receipt in my Steam group, and I will rectify the issue as soon as possible. Also, thank you to Karabimu Soto for his generous gift of 2 keys to help me get started. Your keys helped make many of the hats available, and if you have any qualms with the shop, please let me know. I am kind of new to this. Alright, bye-bye.